Hello everyone and welcome to FiST Chat, the vodcast that features discussions on the topics of film, science and technology. My name is Ben Warner and I'm joined once again on this nice Sunday afternoon by my good friend and colleague Steve Kern. How are we today, Steve?
I'm good, thanks, Ben. No additives here, FiST Chat fans. I'm well and I'm concentrating off my own steam.
Oh, that's always good, and I'm sure we'll find other ways to do that later on in this episode, I'm sure. Before we get into our topics today, don't forget our website, FiSTchat.com. You can get all of our links there. You can subscribe to our audio via iTunes, SoundCloud, and our RSS feeds, and our videos on YouTube, Vimeo, and Digicosm TV. You can interact with us on Twitter, Google+, and Facebook, so I'd love to hear from you there. We've got our ebook, The FiST Report, at fistreport.com, only 99 cents, hosted on Amazon, so good for your Kindle app and a good way to spend a Sunday afternoon if you haven't got much else on, and it helps to support this show. And we've also got our supplementary content, the weekly blogs, photography on Instagram and Flickr, and if you think anyone might be interested in our weekly ramblings on film, science and technology, then point them to our website. I'm sure they'll find it interesting, we hope. Alrighty, just quickly before we get on to our smart drugs topic, you were mentioning just before we got on about Voyager.
Voyager 1 apparently has now officially left the solar system, so is in the deep space between, beyond our solar system and heading towards wherever it's headed. Yep. So the last 5 or 6 years, I think they've been debating whether or not they've left the influence of our sun, and now they've made it official. So bye-bye Voyager 1. Hope you're still watching FiST Chat.
And that gold disc is still spinning our music and messages out there, isn't it?
That's right, to the first people that, or other things that encounter it.
Absolutely. Alrighty, let's move on to our main topic today, smart drugs. School's almost out and final exams are approaching. As the economy slowly builds steam, hiring trends are looking hopeful and pay rises and promotions are on the incline. And some people, young and old, are popping pills to ensure they don't get left behind. Among the most common brain boosting pills are prescription stimulants used to treat attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, such as Adderall and Ritalin, and the wakefulness promoting medication modafinil. Modafinil, yep.
I believe that's how they say it technically.
Oh, it's always good. We've got to be technical on FiST Chat. Dubbed smart drugs, study drugs, cognitive enhancers, and other terms that ring with positivity, these pills have sparked a heated debate about the ethics of using drugs to get ahead. Now, this is all from psychologytoday.com. Now, I guess this is sort of an extension of some other episodes where we've dealt with taking substances to sort of boost performance, whether it's in the workplace, on the sporting field, in the stadium or wherever. There's a lot of pressure, to want to be at your best, performing at your best. But I don't know. Shouldn't we perhaps be focusing on ways to sort of tap that natural energy that your body produces rather than going for that quick hit?
I couldn't agree with you more, Ben. But look, we live in a society of quick fixes. It's very interesting, if it's professional sport or in case it's any kind of sport, it's really bad to take performance-enhancing substances. But, if it's truly personal about making you a better you, by losing weight or making me smarter, apparently it's okay.
So what about this idea of if you're going to a uni exam or you need to, sort of deliver on your performance for those 2 or 3 hours where it's important? Is that? I mean, I'm sure in generations past we all got by with, without taken anything when we go to these things. Is it just a symptom of today's more faster paced society that we feel like we need to be switched on 24/7?
I completely agree. I mean, it's energy drink syndrome, really. The fact that I take something will make me better. But if there's nothing inside your head, it doesn't matter what you put inside your body. Nothing else is going to come out, except rubbish. Rubbish in, rubbish out, If you've studied hard, if you actually understand what you're studying because you're interested in it and you really like it, you'll probably do really well without any drugs at all. It's probably the one thing where I actually I wouldn't be concerned. If I was up in an exam against somebody on drugs versus me not on drugs, provided I'd done the work and I knew the subject, I'm quite certain I could perform as well as anybody, no matter how many drugs they'd taken. The only thing that would make them score better than me would be that they would have better knowledge.
So there's specific examples of, I mean, we've sort of ran through a couple
Yeah.
there, but could you maybe take us through a few and maybe what they are actually doing when they're going through?
There's a lot of debate about what these drugs do, and the nootropics or the smart drugs, they come under 4 or 5 different classes. Each one works at a different sort of way. So you've got your speed type drugs, which people who are recreational users of those sorts of drugs would know very well.
Yeah.
They make you highly alert. For those of us that drink coffee and smoke cigarettes before exams, that too actually, works. The psychoactive and stimulants. But then there's a whole range of other drugs that work on receptor level, at the receptor level or the transport level within the brain. Yeah. So actually work on the messengers in the brain. But the interesting thing is that despite the fact that people say they feel so much more a greater ability to concentrate, everything sharper, the reality is that what these drugs tend to do is mask tiredness. So they don't stop you being tired; they mask you being feeling the symptoms of being tired, which in some cases, might make you perform better. Now, if you've had to spend an all-nighter, cramming for an exam because you didn't do any work for the 6 months before, then you probably need to take one of those drugs before you go into the exam room, not to put in a good performance, but just to stay awake and get something down on the page. Well, it really, I think, people really with these sorts of drugs are being sold the same sort of line as magic pills for slimming. I don't actually think that really, they don't increase knowledge, they don't increase your capacity to learn. They, in most cases, just seem to make you feel a little bit more sharp and more alert.
But isn't that the temptation, the idea that you could just pop a pill and then you'll feel like $1 million going into whatever thing that you need to be enhanced for? And
absolutely, that's the whole idea. So you can go in and probably even if you write crap on your paper,
you'll feel good while you're doing it.
If you feel good while you're doing it, afterwards you can say, "Hey, they marked me down. It's a conspiracy." I couldn't have done a crap job. I was on drugs.
that won't open up any problems for you, will it?
I mean, they're the things. And the thing is that's really important to note on this is that a lot of these drugs have been discovered to have these effects because they've been treating people who have genuine, legitimate medical problems, whether they're mental or emotional or imbalances. That's where these drugs come from. So if you're 100% well, then you probably shouldn't be taking these drugs because they work on a variety of levels all the way through the body. So you might just be thinking they're working on a brain level, but they could be changing your physiology and the rest of your body. Drugs like modafinil will affect the transport of dopamine, which does one thing in your brain, but does other things in areas like the pancreas and the kidney.
Yeah.
So you could actually be affecting, other areas of performance. And I think what people tend to forget is that we are actually hardwired for maximum performance. So if you get yourself a good night's sleep every night instead of going out and partying, if you, concentrate and learn, whatever it is you want to learn and the knowledge you want without like going stupid, if you just do it at a nice steady rate and then you eat well, sleep well and do a bit of exercise, you're probably going to perform as well as anyone who's strung out on drugs. I would have thought that was obvious.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And just finally, is this sort of like the effects would be sort of similar regardless of what you're taking in the sense that you're getting a artificial high off a later crash? I mean, obviously that might take different forms depending on which of these smart drugs that you take, but it's still a similar sort of pattern, isn't it?
Well, that's right, and that's what all these people who use them, and I've got to say, it's pretty scary. I mean, I know you and I have looked at a few podcasts during the week, and it's pretty scary hearing these guys saying how great these drugs are, how they can type faster, or as if that's like something that people really need in the modern age, learning to use a new keyboard, how weird. But, and then they talk about how, the come down's pretty bad. Well, that suggests to me that, what's the point of raising your peak for one day and then being down for two? You're much better off just aiming to get the best you can get. And there are natural substances like L-glutamine, which is the brain fuel, natural. Well, it's the only energy your brain can consume. You can buy that at a health food store. You don't have to take huge doses of it. Do that. B group vitamins. Make sure you eat well. Do a bit of exercise and get a good night's sleep. Stay off caffeine. Don't smoke. And you're probably going to be a pretty smart person.
Yeah, common sense stuff, really, isn't it? Alrighty, we might move on to our film news bites now, and completely changing tack from The Guardian. The secret art of the film soundtrack. How far are we supposed to notice soundtrack music? The received wisdom is that the best score is the one you don't notice. Of course, a lot of Hollywood films have those big sweeping romantic strings and that, cry out and sort of accentuate every plot point or narrative twist. And, they have the subtlety of a sledgehammer. It's kind of good to sort of mention this. I don't think we've talked about music in films on FiST Chat before. And, I've thought about, that a lot since, we've produced our own films and how music sort of fits in with all of that. And it's just a question of, I think, maybe just personal taste combined with making sure that it's not getting in the way of the film being presented.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Hollywood, to you, it's interesting you say that, some of them sound intrusive. I typically, in most Hollywood films, don't hear the music at all because that's how well it's placed. And that's just the way my ears hear things when I'm watching films, as a visual person. But interestingly, I made a film a number of years ago, and I had a friend of mine produce a piano score, and I put it on, and it sounded all right, didn't sound too loud, and I showed it to a few people, and they said it sounded like a silent movie with the music going bang, 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 all the way through it. I had to remix it and get these people to listen to it until they said it sounded normal. So
that's all right. That's probably what happens on every Hollywood production anyway.
but a good score, is very important. And as a composer yourself, Ben, I mean, just how well, getting that mix right, will work.
It's a very delicate balance. Trying to mix it all together, make sure the sound effects work in well, the dialogue works. Yeah, that's why filmmaking is the challenge that it is.
That's right.
Alrighty, we'll move on to our science news bite now from Discovery News. World's thinnest glass made by accident. Researchers accidentally discovered the world's thinnest sheet of glass, just 2 atoms thick. Their chance finding gives scientists a glimpse into the puzzling properties of glass, which behaves like both a solid and a liquid. Sheets of graphene are just 1 carbon atom thick, with those atoms arranged in a honeycomb lattice. If accident or not, that might be an important discovery, I would have thought.
Well, I'd like to know how strong that glass is, because glass, while it's very, very hard, is notoriously brittle. At two atoms thick, I wouldn't think it would take much to break a window pane of that, but it's amazing, isn't it? And the fact that, as always, the most wonderful discoveries are made by accident. I think the big news here is that by being able to produce glass that thin, they can actually combine it with something like graphene. A sheet of graphene over either side would actually probably make the glass super strong.
I'm sensing this might go into, new smartphones to make them even thinner than what they already are.
Well, it would be incredible, Ben. And remember, with graphene, you can have electrical conductivity through it. So it means then you can have, potentially super large, super thin glass panes that frost over when you don't want people to see you getting dressed in your bedroom, and then open up when you want people to see, whatever is in your house that you want them to see.
No, that's on display. And I'm sure there's a whole bunch of other uses for it as well.
That's right.
All right, and finally, our tech news bite. Nothing too extraordinary here, just from Apple Insider. Of course, Apple released its new iPhone line this week. Just more of the same, really, just the incremental updates. It was a time in the past when we were devoting whole episodes to this, but obviously that time's passed, because as far as, the 5C, I think was an obvious sort of extension of where they were going to go, and they're probably going to sell a lot of those just from the novelty factor of it being colorful and whatnot. The 5S is just an extension of the 5, and it's got a couple of things in it, but nothing too different to what was before. I think what's interesting here is just you can see that they're just going to continue pumping out these sort of incremental updates, and which is maybe all they need to do. And the only two bits that really stood out for me was the 5C. I think that the keynote was actually about the 5C, not the 5S, which is probably the first time that the flagship phone wasn't sort of top build. And but the other thing too is how expensive the 5C was. It ain't no budget phone.
No, it ain't. Now, Ben, just on the 5S though, what do you think about this fingerprint identification?
I don't think I'd be using it. I know that they're saying that the fingerprint image is not stored on the phone. It's apparently, I don't know the technical way of describing it, but somehow the data that's encrypted is translated somehow and put on the chip on the phone. That to me still suggests that if someone steals your phone, that there's got to be some way that it could be decrypted. And what happens if you had multiple iOS devices? Now, obviously, the 5S is the only one that has it at the moment, but you could see in the future that all of their devices will probably have it. And if you've got 4 or 5 of these, as an example, not that, I've only got 2, but say if you have 4 or 5 of them, they all got your fingerprints on them. All it would take is, a thief to steal one and off you go. Who knows? The jury's out as to how secure it is, and I'm sure we'll find out as in the months and years ahead.
You'll find out when somebody rips someone off by stealing their fingerprints.
It's like anything. If it works properly and is secure, and maybe if you're vigilant about protecting your information, then maybe it'll work really well. But
I guess my issue is that it is actually biometric data.
Yeah.
So a password's one thing, and I'm sure the fingerprint is actually more secure overall than a password. But the truth is that biometric data means that that's you. That's like, it's like having a bit of your DNA or, a particular piece of information that only you should ever have. And the fact that you transfer that anywhere off your person to anywhere where anyone could potentially read it, that's fraught with trouble. And we talk about this a lot on FiST Chat.
But then again, if we've both travelled overseas, and I'm sure we've both been to the States and had our fingerprints scanned in at customs. So it's on a data. I mean, you would think that a government website would be a little bit more secure with the way they handle things. But
and what if they make some amendment over there to the US Constitution where the US government gets access to Apple's fingerprint storage records?
No, but they're saying they're not storing it for now. But I can see where you're going with it.
Hey, it's okay. If you haven't done anything wrong, there's nothing to worry about.
Yeah, that's right. But that's not going to stop them looking, isn't it? All right, Steve, I think we're out of time there, so we'll finish it up there. So thanks again for the chat.
No worries. FiST Chat fans, send us a thumbprint. Let's see what you made.
We'll do our own biometric assessment. Alrighty, so that's it for this episode. So we'll catch you next time.